सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। प्रातः स्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वम् सच्चित् सुखं परमहं सगतिं तुरीयम् यत् स्वप्नजागर सुषुप्तमवेति नित्यम् तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिनां मुमुक्षोऽहमपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते। Hari Om everybody, welcome to the online classes. So we are doing the highway ahead, how to go about it. As I told you that the three pillars of spiritual evolution, the three spiritual disciplines, when we don't know who we are, we assume what we are not. And that assumption, to get rid of that assumption of the I factor, are these three spiritual disciplines: karma, bhakti, and jnana. Karma, selfless activities without the attitude of me and mine, to do towards a higher goal, a higher ideal in life, with an attitude of service and sacrifice, serving the people at large, and while doing so, sacrificing your own ego, saying that I am claiming that it was me who did all this. Karma yoga, simple. Bhakti yoga, full passion towards the considered goal in life, living an inspirational life. Jnana yoga, not to get involved, entangled, and enmeshed in anything that is temporary, ephemeral in life, and to keep the constant focus on what is the reality, the higher purpose in life, to find out who you are. Once you do these three disciplines diligently, simply put, then you don't need to do anything else. Then you automatically move to a next stage, and the stage is Uparati. We touched upon Uparati a little bit. Uparati is where it's considered to be defined as the withdrawal of one's mind. Now the mind is not exposed to the world much. I am not saying the personality is not exposed to the mind. The personality is always with the world. You can't help it. But there is a general withdrawal by the mind itself. Since now the desires have reduced, you don't want anything for yourself. How much more would you want? So that attitude of enough, I have got enough in my life, that attitude helps you to eradicate a lot of desires which is selfish in nature. And now the mind does not readily go into the world to indulge. Now nothing in the world really excites you to the level of what it used to do before. That state comes, it will come gradually. So when that state, so when you say the word Uparati, Uparati is the inclusion of these two factors. One, the external objects and contacts of the world have stopped instigating me, troubling me. This is the first step. Second of Uparati is where now even when the objects are not there, the people are not there, even when I am alone, devoid of worldly contacts, my mind does not go externally to the said contacts in an imaginary place and get excited, dejected, or disappointed. So both these functions come in Uparati. We don't need to do any of these things, it becomes automatic. When you come to a state of Uparati, this is where they say you have started renouncing the world. So when we use the term renouncing the world, it's a very frightening word. Oh, you are going to give up, you are going to give up. You don't give up anything. In fact, you cannot give up anything. Renunciation is what? When you see from a lower point of view, then you say that person has renounced everything. When you see from a higher point of view, the person who is giving up says, I have not given up anything, I am taking up something higher. When a child indulges in toys and plays with the toys constantly, and it has this inward growth of moving towards a scooter or a bicycle, when it takes up to the scooter or a bicycle, we don't say he has given up toys. He has given up nothing. He has taken up the bicycle, and by default, the toys get over. So all these toys, please read a poem called The Toys. It's a beautiful poem. Someday we'll do it. Where what toys makes our joys. So just as the toys are given up, so also as I grow up, there are certain toys which I play with. What are the toys which I play with? My name. Everybody should know my name. The place where I live. My ideas, my emotions, what I eat, what I don't eat, what I sleep, when I sleep, every aspect of my name, place, power, position in the society. What people think of, all these things are at present the toys which make me happy. So if somebody says something good about me, I am really happy. If somebody doesn't say good about me, I am really sad. If somebody says I am powerful, I am very happy. If somebody says I am not that powerful, nobody listens to me, I am sad. These are the toys at present that makes our joys. Renunciation is giving up this attitude of mindness. It is the attitude of not to give up the possessions, but to give up the possessive attitude towards my possessions. Have everything. This is mine. As soon as you say that, what you are saying is, this is not yours. Mine and yours has come. And as soon as mine and yours come, you are finished. This is not renunciation. Renunciation is a flower. It is giving up its petals away so that it becomes a fruit. From the standpoint of the fruit, the flower is growing into a fruit. When it is growing into a fruit, maturing into a fruit, it is giving up its petals which are at present non-essentials in life. From the lower point of view, when a stranger looks at the flower shedding its petal away, you look at the flower and comment the flower saying that, my God, you are giving your petals, you are so good. But the thought is, I am maturing. Renunciation is not giving up anything. In fact, renunciation is taking up something much more higher, because of which you are giving up all the lower. I have decided always to remain peaceful and happy and cheerful. Therefore, I have given up voluntarily, by decision making, all the agitation, stress, and tension. As simple as that. When you reach this state, automatically, you don't need to do, as I told you, karma, bhakti, jnana, you will slip into this state of Uparati. You are always happy. Now the mind doesn't go outside in the world to indulge. Nothing from the world attracts you, agitates you, disturbs you. And the same thing, your mind doesn't go. So one is the world not affecting you. The mind has this capacity when nothing is there, still to agitate you. In the waking state, while I am awake, all the relationships and all the sense objects are there. Therefore, whenever I get tensed or agitated, I say that person, that object, that situation, that problem is what is agitating me. When from the waking state you go to the dream state, there the sense objects are not that important. The physical world, what I'm seeing, disappears, yet there is the mind and the intellect. Physical body itself is not there in the dream, yet due to the presence of the mind, I see a world, though a little bit hazy. Affectation is still there in the dream, but not to the level of the waking state. And when I move into the deep sleep state, where I experience only deep sleep, nothing else, I don't even experience my body, I don't experience my mind, I don't experience my intellect, I don't experience my ego saying that this is what all belongs to me. Due to this, there is no world existing. There is no world of objects, emotions, and sense contacts. Perceptions, emotions, and contacts. So there is no objects there. When the object is not there, when the mind is not there. So when deep sleep, mind is not there, objects are not there, no agitation. Dream, mind is there, little bit, objects are there, little bit, a little bit of agitation. Waking state, mind is massively there, objects are massively there, therefore agitation is the maximum. This attitude of renunciation automatically creeps up. Therefore, we put to you, the Shastras put to you, that it is not the objects or the beings around you that agitates you, it is because the mind's involvement that agitates you. Once upon a time, there was a great thief who traveled around the world, and his name was Alexander. So they call him Alexander the Great. It's not very great because he just went on plundering more and more kingdoms. So that guy came to India, and his teacher, I think his teacher is Aristotle, if I'm not wrong. His teacher told him that if you go to India and if you meet a sage, bring him. So while traveling across India, he met an Avaduta sannyasi. Avaduta sannyasi is a naked saint, and that saint is lying under a tree, just happy. So Alexander goes there and says, I am Alexander the Great. I have come to meet you. This person doesn't even open his eyes. He just looks and then he keeps on like this, staring in one place. He says, listen, I am a king and you have to stand before me and you come with me. He says, I don't want to come anywhere. I'm very happy here. Alexander gets so angry because after so much of coercion, he's not getting up also. He's not giving the respect to the great Alexander. He immediately told his ministers, put this fellow in a prison. He will know who I am. And the ministers catch hold of him. And since they can't, because the fellow is not getting up. So he's lying on a chorpoy, the cot is there. And he's lying there. And that fellow refuses to get up. So what do? He needs to be carried. So the scene is Alexander was sitting on the horse. And this fellow, this saint, was on a higher place with 4 people carrying his chorpoy. And he's nicely sleeping there on the chorpoy. They put him in the prison. After 3 days, people came to know about it. Alexander's guru came to know, and they said that, listen, he seems to be a wise person, a realized person. You can't fight with these guys. They will not bend for anything. So just ask his blessing because their curse is very dangerous. After a week or something, Alexander goes there, stands before him and says, I'm so sorry. I'm troubling you. I know you are a saint. Please tell me something. What can I do for you? The saint looks at Alexander and says, you can't do anything. I don't want anything. No, please tell me, how can I be of some service? And this saint says, okay, I'll give you one job to do. Yes, please tell me, what can I do for you? Just move aside a little so that from that window the sun rays can hit me. Here, you are blocking the sun rays. When you move aside, the sun rays will come and hit me. That's all I want. You don't want, this is the state of renunciation. You don't want anything from anybody. गुरु तो ऐसा चाहिए, शिष्य से कुछ न ले, शिष्य तो ऐसा चाहिए, गुरु को सब कुछ दे. What a relationship. The guru doesn't want anything, shishya wants to give everything. Dilemma, both sides it is dilemma. This attitude of the mind not getting agitated even without the sense objects and contacts. This is the tendency of the mind. In the Gita, Dhyana, the Bhagavad Gita, there is this Dhyana shlokas. So in Dhyana shlokas, there is this beautiful verse. Prapanna parijataya totra vetrai kapanaya. Prapanna parijataya. He is like a parijata tree. Totra vetrai kapanaya. For anyone who surrenders to this person is like a parijata tree. Parijata tree means whatever you ask the parijata tree, you stand under parijata tree, say, I want this, it will be done. To such a person who surrenders. Why? Who is this person? Totra vetrai kapanaya jnana mudraya krishnaya Gita amrita duhe namaha. That person who has given the nectar of Bhagavad Gita. Who has given Bhagavad Gita nectar? I think so everybody knows. Lord Krishna. And how do you identify Lord Krishna? Which is the best photograph I've seen of Lord Krishna? Lord Krishna just standing, cross-legged. In one hand he is holding a stick and in the other hand he is doing this. Jnana mudraya krishnaya. Stick. The stick in one hand represents allowing the mind, because the stick is a cowherd. He uses the stick to herd the cows. And the cows naturally, when they are going out, they start munching grass, eating everything. So you herd the cow. Come. So whole life, cows are the senses, our senses, sense perceptions. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue and skin. So whole life, the cows are going into the external world and just eating, munching away. And when the eating is done, they continuously do, then you take the cow back to the shed. When it goes back to the shed, now the grass is not there. Now the meadows are not there. Now the pastures are not there. Now the cow tied to a post, what does it do? It brings the food back again and keeps on chewing on it, masticating. This only a cow does. Similarly, we also live in the world of experiences, pleasantries and agitations whole life. This was beautiful, this was not. This was beautiful. Whole life we are indulging into that. And if the indulgence is not there, still when we are without any indulgences, without any contact, sitting in your house, now no more experiences because of this dreaded virus. You can't go out, you can't meet people, so you are sitting at home. Are you happy? No. Why? Like cows, we are continuously doing what? This happened, that happened. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? This is going on. Like cows, constantly experiencing agitation and stress without the sense objects and contacts of the world. What a beautiful thing. Therefore, it is the mind. Uparati is giving up both these things. Neither excited, oh, that person has called me for a marriage. He gave me a card. The person hardly knows you. He's given you a card. Just say thank you and just keep quiet. No, but I have to go. How many days? 4 days, 5 days. One day Mehendi, one day Sangeet, one day my head breaks, the other day my leg. 5 days. 5 days, 24 into 5 hours, I'm trying to spend on a marriage where the person who is getting married, the boy or the girl, hardly talk for 2 minutes. Rest of the day, I'm sitting in one corner eating a small ice cream. This is the condition. Whole days, 4 days, 5 days wasted. I'm not talking about only marriage. I'm talking about so many events, so many, where we think we have the luxury of time. I can waste time as much as I want. That one thing which should be the premium, which I don't know whether I'm going to be alive tomorrow. I am spending that time more carelessly and I'm thinking about everything else which not to be thought of. Uparati takes care of that. No more indulgences. Whatever is required, I'll do. If it is not required, if somebody calls me, fair enough, I'll go if need be. If they don't, I don't have a grievance against anybody. It's all right. And the mind doesn't readily go outside because of the sadhanas of karma, bhakti, and jnana. When you reach the state of Uparati, now you don't have much to do. All the so-called preoccupations of life, what I used to do, has been gone now. Now, if I do this, it's all right. If I don't do, it's all right. Chalega. Whatever is important. So now you have reached in the stage of mountaineering where you were in the base camp. Before reaching the base camp, you carried everything. You carried a Bonvita bottle, you carried this, you carried that, you carried a stick, you carried a selfie stick, you carried a photograph, what's it called, camera. You have carried so many things. This I need, this I need, this I need, and you all go to the base camp. Base camp is the Uparati. Now, from tomorrow onwards, we are moving a higher climb. As soon as the mountaineering guide says that all your equipments or whatever you thought was necessary, it stays there. Few equipments, maybe a camera, maybe an oxygen tank, maybe some gloves or mufflers for that height of cold, essentials. Now you are carrying towards the higher grounds. When you are carrying towards the higher grounds, towards the higher aspect of the mountain, the air becomes thinner. But what a beautiful air. Like Swamiji says, our teacher says, you breathe an ethereal air. It's a different kind of an air. People who are accustomed to pollution cannot get accustomed to that. Therefore, many people from India, when they reach Ladakh, they have to spend 1 day to acclimatize with the air. Nothing wrong with the air. My system is gone. Air is purified. So as you go, you breathe a different, and then you reach another state called Dharana. Dharana state is a state where I need to do essentials only. And I do only that. And when I do that, I do with such concentration. Now, if I tell you to write 3 pages from a textbook without a mistake, we have this homework in the children's class. I tell them 1 page of the Bhagavad Gita, 1 verse, its meaning and the explanation. Just write down. Yes, sir, it's a good homework. Write down without a mistake. You miss 1 comma, you will miss 1 exclamation mark, 1 hyphen, you miss 1 capital letter, anything you miss, you ask the children, wherever we are taking classes, the whole thing gets cancelled and you write again. So the children, what they do is they tear the page. As soon as they don't want to cancel, they tear. I said, don't tear the page. Look at your mistakes. There's nothing wrong in looking at your mistakes. But write. Eventually, a time should come where you write a whole book without a single mistake. That kind of concentration. So, whenever you're doing any activity in the state of dharana, your full focus, 100%, is in that job. You don't think of anything else. You are perfect where you are. You do a little job, but you do it to perfection. The excitement of going into the world and doing things is not there. So one of the Avadhuta sannyasis, he says in one of the textbooks, Avadhuta Gita, he says, I have learned a lot from a lot of natural resources around me. I have learned from a snake also, a python. A python. The python, it sits in one place, doesn't go for food. When food comes before it, it swallows it and then sits back. There is no hurrying or worrying during this state. So the state of dharana is where the involvement into the world is not much. You have come to a state where, like a river water, like a tap water, it's a continuous dhar. It's a continuous focus on one particular aspect of life. The flow is continuous. Therefore, when you go to a Shiva Mandir, Shiva Linga, there is always a kalash on top. If you have seen that, there is always a kalash, there is a Shiva Linga down. And from the kalash, what they do is, water is dripping and the whole water drips on the Shiva Linga at one go. Does that happen? No. You will see from the kalash, drop, 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 tip, 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 hitting on the Shiva Linga. What does it mean? Beautiful. It means the Shiva Linga is nothing but a simple rock, an embodiment of a rock. But by constant dhara, constant persistent action towards that particular stone, diligently, properly, slowly, that stone shape has turned itself into the Shiva Linga. Therefore, dharana is any concentrated effort towards a particular work which needs to be done to take me to the higher aspects of life. You do small, you do little work, but you do it with full concentration. Nowadays, even industrialists say, when people are working from morning 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the office, you ask them what is the productivity time, and they will say it's probably 2 hours. Morning when you come, 10 o'clock, you need to settle up things. By 11 o'clock, the work starts. 11 to probably 12:15, the work will be done. By 12:15 or 12:30, the mind is already working towards lunchtime, 1 o'clock lunchtime. So it's already working, so it's relaxed a little. 1 to 2 becomes lunch. After lunch, nobody does anything. So 2 to 3 is just relaxation. Then 3:30, after a cup of tea or whatever you want to have, 3:30 to 4:30 is the time where you work really hard. And after 4:30, you are ready to go home. Half an hour. So the productivity is only 2.5 hours. Study time, you take up a book, hardly anybody can concentrate for more than half an hour. That is the reason we are keeping these classes for half an hour. In fact, I was against even recording. The whole idea was saying that you listen to it once and that's it, end of it. But the concentration, our concentration has become like a mosquito. It sits for 2 seconds and walks off. This is the meaning of dharana. Full concentration towards a particular action until I understand it. Like one father told his son, if you really want to be successful, learn from a postage stamp. Stick yourself to the envelope and don't give up until you reach the highest. This is the attitude. This is dharana. Once you reach the state of dharana, I told you all these are automatic. Your desires are evaporating slowly, disappearing, disappearing, disappearing. And when it disappears, maximum only 5, 6 thoughts are left in the head. Now there is no disturbance from outside, no disturbance from inside. You are in a reality world of your own. While interacting with the world, don't get me wrong, it's not giving up the world. You are still there, but nothing excites you as much. Then you automatically slip into the next beautiful state of dhyana, which eventually leads to samadhi. The next two states of dhyana and samadhi will reach you to the ultimate state of realization. That two stages will continue next class. Very important. Please don't miss it. Thank you very much. Oh.